Okay, all right, hello. Welcome to the Witcher short stories tier list. I actually streamed this last night, and I didn't have the setting on that saves the VODs automatically. So here I am redoing the whole tier list right now. Anyways, these are from The Last Wish and The Sword of Destiny, the first two books in the Witcher series. So let's get started. First off, I'm gonna pick them kind of randomly. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I'll start with The Witcher, the first short story in the first book. I feel like this is high B tier, maybe low A tier. It might move around at some point. This is just like a solid short story. You know, it's just a Witcher contract, and you don't see that a lot because it always blows up into something more. No pun intended. But it's just a simple Witcher contract. But there's intrigue. King Foltest has hired Geralt to do this, but there's also the townspeople who don't want the Striga to get killed, and then there's also like King who loves his child, and it's a whole mess. But it's so solid. The combat is good. It's an intro to the series, and it does that really well. It introduces a Witcher to you. So it's solid. It's a good one to start with. A Question of Price. This is an A tier short story. First of all, it introduces you to the main saga. The characters that are in it aren't super important for the majority of the saga, but what it means, like, it shows us how Geralt winds up with Ciri. It shows us him claiming the Law of Surprise and ending up with Ciri. And also the intrigue is so good. Queen Calanthe and Hedgehog, they're back and forth. It's so good. Like, I can't even hardly believe this. The part where Duny says, I can't throw down my helmet until midnight by knightly oath because he's a horrific hedgehog creature and he doesn't want them to know. So Queen Calanthe sends somebody to ring the bell early, and so he's forced to throw down his helmet because everybody thinks it's midnight, and he reveals himself as a gross hedgehog. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and you can't dance with destiny. And it all ended up fine in the end because Skellige and Sintra still got an alliance, and Pavetta's happy even though she married a nobody. So it's a solid short story. Eternal Flame, it's the worst one. It's the lowest one in my opinion. It doesn't sit in a good spot. First of all, it doesn't drive the plot forward in any meaningful way. It enforces some character development on Geralt's part when Dudu takes on the form of Geralt and he says, you won't kill me because you're kind. And Geralt was saying the same thing about him. It's just like, it's reinforcing things we already know about Geralt's character from The Last Wish. We spend so much time learning how Geralt operates on contracts and in the world that it doesn't really drive anything forward by reinforcing that in this short story. And also, it doesn't make sense in this book. Like, The Sword of Destiny is all about the two most important women in Geralt's life and his relationship to them. Like, it starts with a Yennefer short story, and the second one is a Yennefer one as well. And then she's missing from the next few short stories, and then Ciri shows up. And what that does is we see in those first short stories that Geralt and Yennefer don't work together. They don't work. She's not willing to give him something that he desperately wants, but we see that he needs something more. And we find out at the end of Sword of Destiny that Ciri is the something more. So there's a neat flow from Yennefer to Ciri, and we see Geralt in all times in between that. So this random ass short story that doesn't include Yennefer and doesn't include Ciri doesn't really do anything for me. That's why it's the lowest one. The Sword of Destiny, it's a C tier short story for me, and I think that's really controversial. The good things about this short story, the interactions between Geralt and Ciri, incredible. You see a softer side of Geralt. They're so funny together. You see why they're destined for each other. Like, you knew sparks were gonna fly when they finally met each other, and they do. Other than that, this short story doesn't really do anything for me. It does have good character development for Geralt at the end when he's undergoing the ritual and the druid tells him, the Sword of Destiny has two blades. One is death and you are the other. First of all, that's badass. Second of all, it really sits on Geralt heavily. That's why he leaves Ciri behind at the end of this, because he knows that death dogs his footsteps. Anywhere he goes, death will follow him. So that's why he doesn't take Ciri with him at the end of this. So there's good character development here. But as for Brokilon and the druids, I don't know, this short story wasn't all that captivating to me. That's why it's in C. The Edge of the World, this is high A. This is as high as A gets, I think. It's not S, but it's high A. It just has such a solid vibe and such a solid flow. We start Geralt and Dandelion buddy cop adventures, like walking through Dol Blathanna looking for work. There's a funny little contract with Torque the Sylvan, and they're fighting, they're getting hit with iron balls, there's good jokes, everything's solid. And then it snowballs into something completely bigger than them. This conflict, it introduces us to the conflict between the humans and the elves. And it's so beautifully handled. And you get to see the arguments of humans, you get to see the arguments of the elves, and you get to see that both are flawed and both have merits. And it's, I don't know, it introduces the elves, and you can see that they were so advanced once. You can see it in their bearing, in the way they carry themselves. But now they've been reduced to nothing. And Filavandrel saying, I used to be Filavandrel of Dol Blathanna, the Valley of Flowers. I used to be Filavandrel of all this and that. And now his title is Filavandrel of the Edge of the World. That's badass. Like, that's badass. So I think it's just the most like solid short story. The characters are fun. It starts really funny and then ends in like bigger world building things. And I don't know. It just has a really solid start to finish. A Grain of Truth. This is low A or high B. I'm going to put this in high B for now. A Grain of Truth. The character work is incredible. Nivellen is such a character. He has flaws. He's done things in his past that are disgusting, and we're seeing him pay for it, as he should be. And the twist at the end of this short story, where he has to kill the woman that he loves, and the curse is reversed, it's so heartbreaking for him, because A, he's had to kill the woman that he loves, and B, that ends up reversing the curse, which he didn't want to have happen in the first place. He was fine where he was. He even tells Geralt, I'm no longer looking for the grain of truth in these different fairy tales. He's not looking for that anymore, because he's found love with this woman. He doesn't want to turn back, and then he does. The Bounds of Reason, this is also, I like this more than the first short story. I like this more than The Witcher. It's just a solid short story. You have all these different factions. You have the Reavers, you have the dwarves, you have Yennefer and the Regarai, and you have King Nidamir and his consort, and you have Sir Ike of Denel, Geralt. Everybody wants this dragon for different reasons, and it all twists in the end with Borch being a golden dragon. That line at the end where he looks at Geralt and Yennefer and says, nothing will come of it. That's heartbreaking. They needed to hear that, but it's heartbreaking. Another portion of that short story I love is when Geralt and Yennefer are dangling from the rope, and Geralt knows that they're gonna die. They're gonna fall and die. And Geralt's begging Yennefer to forgive him, but she won't do it. Don't leave the sorceress baddie for 4 years. Don't just walk out and leave, because she's not gonna forgive you when you come crawling back. The Lesser Evil. I don't have the greatest opinion of this short story. I think it goes under A Grain of Truth. Doesn't break into A for me. The Lesser Evil, this is the most popular Witcher short story, I think. I mean, it has the classic line, evil is evil, Stregobor. Lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. If I'm to pick between one evil or another, I prefer not to pick at all. That's like the classic line, and it tells us so much about Geralt's character. But the actual short story, it's whatever. It introduces us to a lot of important things in the Witcher world. I think that's our first sorcerer run-in, Stregobor. We see Renfri use sex as a weapon or a manipulation tool, which is very common in this world. But as for the actual short story, it doesn't have that much going for it. It doesn't have the emotion that some of these short stories I have left provoke. The Last Wish, classic. That's an S tier short story, obviously. I'm such a Yennefer simp. Like, any short story with Yennefer, I'm gonna be there. But The Last Wish in particular, I love the intrigue of it. We realize, okay, Dandelion's got the wishes. She's making him do a third wish so that she can capture the genie, but it's not working. But then Geralt did wish for that guy to blow up, and he did, so Geralt must have the wishes. But surely he has 2 wishes left. But then wait, the exorcism from the start of the short story was a wish in itself, and that's why the genie's so mad. And then finally Yennefer says, like, do it, say the final wish. And I'm gonna read an excerpt. She stood over him in the flickering radiance of the wizard's sphere, in the glow of magic, amidst the flashes of rays restraining the djinn, streaming hair and eyes blazing violet, erect, slender, dark, terrible, and beautiful. And then the Witcher suddenly understood what it was he wanted, and he made his wish. And we never learn what the wish was, but we can gather that he's decided to tie his fate to Yennefer's. And there's the moment where he sees her as she truly was, as a hunchback, and he's so worried and so ashamed because he's so scared that she's going to know that he saw that and never forgive him. My heart, it's a really good short story. Something more. This could be S, but it's definitely high A. This is the most necessary short story. I'd really want you to read Last Wish to care about the Yennefer stuff, but if you had to read one short story from The Witcher, before reading the main saga. I think it should be something more. Ciri is so prevalent in the series, and you need the intro. You need Geralt finally realizing he needs to get to Ciri. You need Geralt's past, meeting his mother Visenya, who abandoned him. You need to see the pieces moving in the world. Nilfgaard attacking the northern kingdoms. It's such a necessary short story. And the line at the end, say it, Geralt, am I your destiny? He says, no, you're more than that, much more. It's so good. A Little Sacrifice. This is also S tier. Essie Davin. I mean, Andrzej Sapkowski can write a female character. Yennefer might be the greatest female character in all of fiction, and Essie Davin is not far behind. She's so amazing, and it's such a parallel. It's such a needed parallel after Shard of Ice, which we're about to get to. We see Geralt put in the exact same position that he's been putting Yennefer in by saying that he loves her. Essie Davin loving Geralt, and he can't love her back. It's just so crushing. It's so human. The rest of the short story is really good with Shianaz and the Duke and the underwater city. And there's that moment where Geralt is about to die. He's about to be like stabbed by a bunch of fish. And he says, if I get out of this, I'm going to go right back to Vengerberg and try again with Yennefer. And then he gets out of it. And he says, I can't go back there. She can't give him what he wants. And you really need this short story, I think, to understand, to see why Geralt gives Yennefer up. It's because he figures out in this short story that a little sacrifice is a whole hell of a lot. It's so peak. And that leaves us with A Shard of Ice. A Shard of Ice is the best Witcher short story ever written. It's the best one. The intricacies. Yennefer has come to this town and has a kestrel, and she has come here to break up with Istrid, the other wizard. And Geralt and Istrid start fighting. Geralt's like, you should know that Yennefer and I slept together last night. And Istrid says, we slept together this morning. Damn. Geralt and Yennefer have this moment where Geralt says he loves Yen. He doesn't say it, but he says it. And she realizes she can never love him in that same way. Geralt has condemned himself to her. She cannot love him back. So she makes a second kestrel. And we don't learn until the end what the kestrel was for, because Istrid has got his kestrel and it had a letter from Yen that said they're over. And Geralt's walking away and he knows that that kestrel is waiting for him when he gets back and that Yennefer will be gone. And just the whole story. At the start of the story, we understand that Geralt has been hit by a shard of ice from the Ice Queen, who is Yennefer. And he is doomed to follow her until his death. Doomed to love her until his death. But by the end of the short story, we realize it's the other way around. Yennefer, in being unable to love Geralt even though she wants to, is the one who has been hit by a shard of ice, and Geralt is the Ice Queen. The role reversal is incredible. The subtleties of this short story, just the way it makes me feel, it's so incredible. And there you have it. That's the Witcher short story tier list. Let me see if any of these could be moved around. Eternal Flame belongs here. I'm sorry. Sword of Destiny, I think that's kind of controversial to put it that low, but it just doesn't do much for me. And honestly, same for The Witcher. It's just like a basic contract. That's why it's low B tier. Bounds of Reason, so solid. All the different factions. Lesser Evil, I would consider doing this. Yeah, I think Bounds of Reason I like more than Lesser Evil. Grain of Truth in the perfect spot. Question of Price, Edge of the World, something more. Yeah, the list is perfect. Definitive, my opinion. Thank you for joining me on this, and we'll be starting. Wait, where's my book? See that? This is coming up next. All right, I'll see you.